Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to explore one of the most remarkable feature of the ancient Indus Valley Civilization, its town planning. The sophistication and attention to urban design in cities like Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro and Lothal show more than 4,000 years ago, people were building cities with standards that amaze us even today. Let's start with the overall layout of these cities. The Indus civilization planners laid out the cities on a strict grid pattern, wide main roads running north-south and east-west, intersecting at right angles, dividing the city into rectangular or square blocks. These blocks were further subdivided by narrow lanes. In many of the excavated sites, the width of the main street can vary from about 9 feet, roughly 2.7 meters, up to as wide as 30 to 34 feet, around 9 to 10 meters. What this tells us is that these cities weren't grown haphazardly, the layout was planned in advance, with modules and repeatable patterns. Surrounding these urban centers were massive brick walls in many cases, indicating a conscious planning of public space, security, and controlled development. Beyond the grid streets, one of the main standout features is the water supply and drainage system. Almost every house was found to have access to public well, and many houses had internal bathing and areas and toilets. These were connected to covered drains that ran alongside the streets, and manholes placed at regular intervals allowed for inspection and cleaning. The drains themselves were constructed using bricks, often kiln fired, and sometimes with corbelled roofs to handle excess water flooding. In essence, almost every home and every street had a direct connection to the city's drainage network. Hygiene and sanitation were built in cities' design, not added later. The quality and scale of the sanitation system in these cities were unmatched among ancient contemporaries. Another important part of the urban design was zoning. Many Indus cities featured a raised administrative or elite area, often called the citadel or upper town. This was separated from the lower town, where ordinary residential houses were located. The citadel often include large public structures such as warehouses or granaries, which suggest planned storage and control of resources. The residential area typically contained houses built around courtyards, often 1 or 2 story high, made of uniform burnt bricks and entered via narrow lanes. No windows directly faced the main street in many houses. Even modest homes had well-defined rooms, kitchens, bathroom, and private wells, signaling a high standard of living across the board. Additionally, the construction material and building standards are remarkable. Everywhere you excavate in these cities, you find the same ratio of burnt bricks, for example, 4:2:1 length to breadth height ratio in some places. Stone buildings were rare, instead, bricks dominate, suggesting standardization and efficient production. Roofs were mostly flat and made of wood. Staircases in large buildings indicate upper floors. The use of such standard material across multiple cities, hundreds of miles apart, show a civilization that not only planned individual cities but shared building rules and architectural culture across regions. Let's also highlight a few extra examples that bring this urban planning to life. The city of Lothal, for instance, had both the citadel and the lower town, but also a specialized dockyard for maritime trade, illustrating that Indus planners were thinking about commerce and connectivity as well as domestic amenities. Cities were often oriented to take advantage of prevailing winds and built on elevated platforms in flood-prone areas, showing an understanding of environmental changes and risk mitigation. These weren't just passive settlements, they were engineered environments. So, what does all this mean for us? The town planning of Indus Valley reveals a civilization that valued governance, hygiene, uniform standard living, and long-term thinking. For an era around 3300 to 1300 BCE, with cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro at their height around 2600 to 1900 BCE, the urban sophistication is extraordinary. This makes the Indus cities far ahead of many of their contemporaries in terms of civil engineering and municipal management. For us today, it reminds us that urban planning is not just about roads and building, it is about shaping how people live, how communities are organized, how resources are managed, and how public health is ensured. In conclusion, the Indus Valley Civilization town planning was bold, systematic, and visionary. From the streets that formed perfect right angles to the homes with their private wells and bathrooms and the vast drainage network, these cities were marvels of their time. If you ever visit ruins of Harappa or Mohenjo-Daro or view reconstruction, you will see that they don't just reflect ruins, they reflect a blueprint of urban living. Thanks for watching. If you found this exploration interesting, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more information into ancient civilization and their achievements. Drop your question in the comments and I'm happy to discuss further. See you next time.